Hey,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. All right, everybody. First of all, thank you for your patience. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mona Raglow. I am the Director of Member Experience at Central Exchange, and we've got a very lovely crowd today to listen to Amy Leslie. And so I'd love to introduce Amy. Amy is the CEO of Perspective Consulting, and they are a certified partner with the Predictive Index, and she has partnered with Central Exchange. The Predictive Index is one of the benefits that our members receive, and it's great that she and her business partner, Haley Graylis, get to help us understand the Predictive Index. And today she's going to be talking about something so very relevant in the world that we're living in right now, which is how to keep remote employees engaged. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Amy, and hopefully we will go through this without any glitches at all. At some point, if we have audio issues, we may we may make everybody turn off their video, because that sometimes helps with the bandwidth. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Amy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Mona. I'm happy to be with everybody today, and we're going to be talking about ways to keep our remote employees engaged. Before we get started, for those of you that are new to Zoom, just a little housekeeping and logistics. If you look at Manage Participants and you click on that, you should get a little toolbar here. So throughout this presentation, I'll try to keep you engaged. I know you just don't want to hear me talk and not participate, so I'll try to keep you engaged, and we'll do some things like raise our hands, or maybe we'll do the clap feature, which is under More in your toolbar. I'll also be generating some polls so we can kind of see how everybody's feeling and thinking about certain subjects. So just get acquainted with your toolbar. The mute button should be in your lower left-hand corner. I will ask everybody to stay on mute unless you have a question or want to talk. And yeah, if you're having problems hearing, you can just type in the chat and let us know if something's going on. All right, well, let's get started, and let's keep our fingers crossed the technology will last through the hour. So I want to talk about this sudden shift that we all went through. Just like the snap of our fingers, the way we do business changed. And it was quite shocking and quite abrupt, and I don't think any of us expected it. The other day I was reading an article that I think perfectly explained what we're all going through right now. And the author described what just happened to our businesses and our lives as somebody just kicked our anthills. And so I want you to close your eyes and imagine when you were a kid, or accidentally or on purpose, you kicked an anthill. Complete chaos arises. This is what just happened to our lives, our businesses, our world. We're all feeling a little bit like ants scattering. And if you are a leader, you might feel like your people are scattering ants. So we're going to talk about how we remain in control, and we maybe restore some order to our businesses and help our people through this time. So before we get started, let's talk about, and if you want to just type in the chat box, what is your biggest challenge right now? You can type in the chat box, what are you going through? What's your biggest challenge right now? Did everybody find your chat box? So while some people are typing, I'll share what some of our clients have expressed with us. I think the most common challenge we've heard is just adjusting to working from home and maintaining your own priorities as well as those of your people. Some of our clients have shared that they are struggling with focus. Some have shared that they're struggling with human anxiety and exhaustion. So a lot of their people are going through some stress, anxiety, and exhaustion. So just keeping up with that. Anyone else have a challenge that you're really struggling with? Okay. So while we are waiting for that, I'm going to do a poll. Let's see if I can launch polls here. So this is a fun poll, and this will just get you used to using polls inside of Zoom. But this is a fun one. So in the last few weeks, these are some of the most commonly Googled things that people are Googling. You can select one or any of these. So just select, what are some things that you've Googled on this list? Okay, we've got some good ones. Okay, I'll go ahead and publish. Okay, you guys are really worried about how long the coronavirus could live on. Name your surface, right? So we've Googled that. We've Googled a lot of different things. I think I've been cooking more in the last few weeks than probably ever. Who is Carol Baskins? I think everybody's seen that ridiculous show, but we know we're bored when we're watching things like that just because everybody's posting about it. Okay, so that's a fun poll. Looks like our polling feature is working. Good deal. So I will exit out of here. Okay, now I'm seeing the chat comments of what you guys are experiencing. So yeah, we're all experiencing a lot of challenges right now. We are, trying to keep our businesses afloat, and we're trying to keep our people engaged. So let's talk about tips on how to keep our people engaged, especially remotely, and inspired during this time. So I've got 10 tips for you, and we'll kind of pause and talk about each. So first of all, if you have not done this, I want you to ask your people, are they okay? So raise your hand if you have asked your people in the last week if they're okay or how they're feeling. Oh, good. We've got some people raising their hands. Great. Good. If you haven't done so, that's the first thing I want you to do is to spot check the emotional state of your people. This is probably the most important thing we can do right now to check in on our human beings who work for us. So check on their emotional state. And this is one that I use. So at the beginning of every team meeting, at the beginning of every one-on-one, we're just going through and we're stating where we are right now. So this is one that you can use and just ask your people on a scale of 1 to 5, with these being your options, how are you feeling? Are you struggling? Are you concerned but optimistic? Are you feeling kind of neutral? Are you feeling pretty good or totally fine, things are normal? So you can anonymously poll your people, and I'll poll all of you just to see how we are feeling. Let me launch this poll. So tell me, how are you doing on the call? And you can ask your people this, and in a team setting, they might not feel comfortable sharing. So this gives them an anonymous way to explain how they're feeling, and then we can keep a pulse on our groups. And then I would ask your people, if you have a high level of trust, individually how they're feeling. Okay, so as a group, we are feeling pretty concerned but optimistic. And I think that's probably how I feel right now. I feel concerned, but I do feel optimistic about what's to come in the future. So yeah, poll your people and ask them, how are you feeling? How are things going? If they are struggling, talk about what they're struggling with and how you can help them. All right, so I read this interesting article the other day in HBR that said that the discomfort that we're feeling right now is actually grief. And so that was really interesting to me. I hadn't thought about it that way, but right now you and your people are going to go through what's called anticipatory grief, which is really uncertainty about what the future holds. So we're all worried about how long are we going to be in this state? Can we continue to sustain our business? Can we take care of our families? How are we going to come out on the other end of this? And so I want you to think about this in terms of the grief cycle. So if you've ever looked at the grief cycle, and we don't go through the grief cycle in a linear fashion, we actually kind of go back and forth. So people go through the grief cycle and then sometimes we back up. So think about what phase you're in right now, and I'll poll and see how everybody's doing. Let me launch that poll. But be paying attention to where your people are as well. How are they feeling? In what phase are they in the grief cycle? And I'll ask all of you, what phase do you think you're in today, right now? Might be different from where we were yesterday. Give everybody a minute to answer. Okay. All right, so let me launch, share results, and it looks like a lot of us are in that neutral phase, right? So we're kind of in the transition. We're not sure. We're some days we might be on the upswing, some days we might be back in frustration. So I think that makes sense. So poll your people, keep a pulse on where they are, and be very mindful of how you are dealing with them based on what phase of the grief cycle they are in. So I can't see the comments, so I'm going to pause and just see, Mona, if there are any questions from anyone.
Yes, a couple of people are asking if you can share the link to the, I'm scrolling back and forth now, to the article that you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of this, I'll provide some resources that we'll email out, and we'll share the links to resources. You got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, we have quite a few comments from the beginning when people were talking about missing their grandkids. When the day starts and stops, blend that with raising kids, so the stay at home. One concern is keeping their team connected. Somebody else says it feels like you never leave the office, which I know I can relate to that one. And just staying connected with our teams. Somebody says not being able to go to Target is an issue, which many of us can relate to, not being able to get out of the house.
Yeah, that's tough. Okay, I can actually see the group chat now. I don't know, whatever you did, man, good job, I can see. so I'll keep an eye on those then, and pause every now and then to ask questions and answer any questions people have. Okay, so I'll share this article about this is anticipatory grief, and maybe you can use this slide. We'll share a link to this PowerPoint if you want to use it with your teams and your people. I'm happy to share. You might want to use this slide and poll your people and ask, hey, where are you right now? How are you feeling? Okay, so that's the first thing. Really check in on your people, make sure they're okay, make sure that you understand what emotional state they're in, and keep a pulse on that. Don't stop asking. Because we really need to be monitoring. The second thing is I want you to think about getting your mind right. So I don't know if anyone has read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. Raise your hand if you've read that book. Okay, a few people. This is a great book. This is a book that they're actually having children read. I'm actually having my son read this right now that he's home. But we, as leaders, need to be mindful of our mindset right now. So this concept of growth versus fixed mindset is the idea that in life, we go through phases, and sometimes we're in a growth mindset where we see opportunities as challenges, as ways to grow, as things that excite us, and we adapt, right? So when we get in the growth mindset, we actually are in optimal performance mindset. But it's real easy for us to move over to the right into this fixed mindset, where we believe that external factors doom us to failure and we're victims, or we're frustrated, so therefore we give up. I can't think of another time in my life than right now where it would be very easy to move into this fixed mindset. There's a lot of things going on outside of our control, and we've got to pivot and adapt, and we've got to keep ourselves positive, and it's really hard some days, I have to admit. So I really want you to be paying attention to your mindset and also the mindset of your people. You might share this with your people and just remind them that as leaders, we've got to keep ourselves in a growth mindset. We've got to help keep our people in a growth mindset, because it's really going to be, I think, what makes or breaks our success as leaders and as businesses, is the ability to move into this growth mindset, adapt, change, pivot, and prepare ourselves for the future. Okay. So I love this quote from the book, and again, I'll share this book as a resource, but Carol S. Dweck is the author, and it's called Mindset. And in the book, she says, be aware of success. It can knock you into a fixed mindset. Our economy was on the upswing. And I don't know about all of you, but our business was rocking and rolling before this. And then we kind of came to a screeching pause. I call it a pause because we will then move forward. But I do think that's true, that if we just start to have success and continue to have success without being appreciative of that success and pausing to figure out why we're continuing to have success, it's very easy to get into this fixed mindset. And when something external comes in and puts a damper on that success, it's very easy to say, well, it's the world. What can I do about it? All right, any questions about mindset? There are some really great resources out there for those of you who know John McGraw. I know he has spoken at Central Exchange before. He does some really great work with companies as well as individuals on just performance mindset training. He was an athlete, and athletes are really good at figuring out the mindset and how to stay positive. If we remember the Chiefs this year, let's be the Chiefs right now. We're down, but we are not out. Okay, number 3 is dial up your self-awareness. It is more important than ever that we be very self-aware right now. How am I behaving? How are my actions, behaviors impacting others? So to really tune into your self-awareness and make sure that all of your leaders are dialing up that awareness piece. So raise your hand if you're self-aware. If you're self-aware and you know it, raise your hand. Okay, I've got a few people. Okay. Good, lots of people are. Some people are like, I'm not so sure. I'm not as self-aware as I should be, or I'd like to be, right? Okay, so yeah, I think that most of us think we're pretty self-aware. We like to think of ourselves as self-aware. So there was a study done by Tasha Eurich, and this is a fantastic book, by the way. She wrote a book called Insight, and I'll share that as well after this. But she did a 5-year research study with 5,000 people, and she followed these people very closely. And she defined self-awareness by a lot of things. It's not just, am I aware of my behaviors? But she really defined it as, am I aware of my behaviors and my values? Do those align with how other people see my behaviors and my values? And do I create the impact that I intend? And so she measured people's self-awareness for years and years. What percentage, and you can just type in the chat box, but what percentage of people do you think thought they were self-aware? At the beginning of the study, they were asked, what percentage do you think thought, I'm self-aware, what percentage? Okay, 90, 65, 75. Yep, pretty high numbers. Well, you're right. It was a high number of people. 95% of people said, yep, I'm self-aware. Okay, now I want you to guess what percentage of people at the end of the study truly were self-aware in all assets. 25, 10, much lower numbers, 15%. Okay. Ding, ding, ding. Somebody guessed the correct answer. 15% of people truly were. So there's a gap. We as human beings like to think of ourselves as very self-aware, but sometimes there's a disconnect. And I believe it's because we judge ourselves by our intentions that are in our head that we don't always share. And we judge other people on their behaviors, and we make assumptions. So in this time, I want you to not assume. If something happens, if something's going on, if you're going to assume anything, assume positive intent and then ask. Because it is really hard right now. We're not seeing each other. We're not being in each other's presence. And so it's real easy to make some assumptions in absence. So let's really dial up our self-awareness and let's be talking to our people and sharing. So I do a really fun way of checking in. I call this my makeshift 360. I want you to, if you have people that you work with, I want you to talk to each of them one-on-one and do this exercise with them. Ask them, what should I start doing? What should I stop doing? And what should I continue doing? So you can ask your people, if you have high level of trust and psychological safety, you can ask them directly and just talk through it. If you want to anonymously, one of my clients sent out a survey monkey and anonymously asked as the leader of the company what she should start doing, stop doing, and continue doing to help people through this time. Real quick and easy and simple and powerful information, and be prepared to receive and accept, the feedback that you receive. I'll send this out after, but we have a checklist for self-aware leaders. Mine is behind me right here. I actually rebuild this out and keep it invisible so that I am making sure that I'm reminding myself in every human interaction that I have to be self-aware. So I'll send this out for you to just do a little self-reflection and highlight maybe a few things that you need to be working on at this time. Okay. And then for those of you who have taken advantage of your Central Exchange membership and taken the Predictive Index, inside of PI, you have some really great reports that tell you about who you are as a leader and what your superpowers and your kryptonite are as a leader. So we'll make sure if you want to get a copy of your reports, if you can't find them, we'll make sure you can do that. Or if you need to take the PI assessment to get that insight, it is very helpful to just let you know what your tendencies are when you're not thinking about it. Okay. So the fourth one is empower them to get work done. So it is really hard when I don't have eyes on my people to trust, right? But trust is critically important right now. Without trust, you don't have anything. Everything falls apart with your team. I love this. I love Stephen Covey. And I love this quote. He says, without trust, we don't truly collaborate. We merely coordinate or at best cooperate. And trust is the thing that transforms a group of people into an actual team. So now is a good time to be working on your trust. If you've never read the book, Speed of Trust, maybe add it to your list. I'll include it in our resources, but be focusing on building trust with your people. Trust is not just about being honest and ethical. Most of you, that comes naturally to you. It's about making sure that all of your people understand that you want to help them, you can help them, and you do, that you're providing value. And there are things you can work on as a leader to actually build trust with the human beings in your one-on-one interactions and your team interactions. Okay, so really be focusing on that trust piece. And think about how your people can lead and influence. You have people in your ranks with remarkable capabilities and who actually want to lead and influence at this time. So whether that looks like giving them a stretch project or maybe letting them run a team meeting. We're all busy and we have lots of webinars, so maybe assign one of your people who would love to run a team meeting and give them a real loose agenda. But give your people that opportunity to shine, and especially the ones that really want to. Be flexible. Oh my goodness, right now, all of our lives have turned upside down, and many of us are working from home with kids, and now we're the homeschoolers, and we're the cooks, and we're the entertainers, and there's a lot going on in people's lives right now. We need to be flexible. Some of our people are living alone, and that's really tough right now, sitting at home, being alone. So make sure that you're being flexible, that you're empowering people to get their work done and be productive in their own way. Some of us can relate to a lot of these videos where the kids are toddling in while we're trying to have important phone calls. Our dogs are barking, our cats are jumping on our computers. Our children are home and antsy. They can't see their friends or play or go to school. So be very flexible with your people right now. Empower them to get work done. Be understanding. And your job as leaders are to really try to minimize distraction, frustration, and anxiety. Really be talking to your team. How can I help you lower your distractions, reduce your frustration and anxiety right now? And sometimes tools play a big part of that. So make sure you're using technology. Pick a few set of tools. Don't use all the things because that gets confusing. Pick communication channels, pick technology, and help people work around what's going on in their lives. Okay. Any questions? Let me just check the chat box, make sure I'm not missing any. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Okay, number 5 is understand how they change. We are going through worlds of change right now. Our jobs have changed, how we do them, where we work, how things get done. So change is not the easiest for human beings. If you've ever read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, or any of these change management books, we know that change is difficult. And I like to put people based on who they are into 4 buckets and how they approach change. So I want you to maybe present this to your team and see where everybody falls. You're always going to have the people that love change, that thrive under change. Yes, please bring me the change. So those people, they're fine with change. They move quickly, they pivot quickly. One thing those people might be struggling with right now is routine. For those of us who are not used to working from home and sitting in the same darn chair all day long doing webinars, we're a little uncomfortable. We like a change of scenery. We like to move around. We like to get out and about and see our people. So be mindful that you will have some people that love change, move with it. For other people, it's about what's the win. So in the face of change, they want to see what's the final outcome. How are we going to be better and thrive in this change? So maybe start thinking through that and having them think about what's going to be the ultimate outcome and win for us. You've got people who are in the whoa bucket. In the face of change, they ask a lot of questions. Why, how, they have to put things into a list or a process. So if you're a very process-oriented person, you're probably trying to reshuffle your life right now in terms of a prioritization list. So give them a little bit of time. Let them help with the processes of the change with your team. And then you have the people who are going to worry about how change impacts the humans. So there's those of us who are always thinking about, I just made a change, how are my people? How do the people feel? How do they perceive the change in me? So pay attention to where you are in this bucket, and then also your people, and be trying to satisfy everybody's needs and how they're going to go through and work through this change. Okay. Okay, number 6, we need to help them focus. Okay, remember the anthill. We're all kind of scattered around, not sure what we're supposed to be focused on. So your job as a leader is to help your people focus and make priorities. So I'm borrowing this from a friend of mine who's also a Central Exchange member. She talked about this in a webinar where she talked about roles and goals. It's all about simplicity of roles and goals right now. So help your people figure out 3 to 5 priorities. And let's talk about what is the work that needs to be done in those priorities. What are our expectations and timelines? And then what about this scenario that we're all in is going to affect quality and standards? You cannot be unreasonable as a leader right now in understanding that standards and quality and expectations have to shift to this time. People are going through a lot and people are trying to juggle a lot of things. So let's be realistic and fair about how that affects our roles, goals, and the quality of work and standards, okay? So be really paying attention to that piece of it right now. Any questions? Please feel free to type in the chat box if you have questions. We'll pause for just a minute. You can unmute yourself and ask if you want to ask verbally, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so be making sure that you are reviewing priorities and keep it simple. Don't try to be working on 23 things. Keep it very simple right now. Make sure that we are focused to 3 to 5 things. Okay, your job as a leader is to be clear, empathetic, but firm. We still have clients, we still have outcomes. Maybe you're still producing things for the public or you have essential jobs working for you. We still have to produce results. We can be clear, we can be kind, and we can be empathetic, but now's not the time to let your people completely slide out of control. We still have to be firm to getting results. So as Brene Brown says, clear is kind. So make sure you're being very clear about your expectations right now, more than ever. 7, connect with them appropriately. I use the word appropriately because there are several things we have to be mindful of. How frequently and how you connect your people will be determined by, first of all, what is their skill level and experience level doing their jobs. If people are new to a job or their job just changed and things are really new, they're a novice, we really need to be checking in a little bit more frequently. Make sure that you're explaining that so that you don't seem like a micromanager. And also pay attention to their personality because that will tell you how they need connection. So know what they need, not just from a skills standpoint to get the job done, but from a human standpoint. So I think most of us fall in one of these 2 categories right now. We're either the extroverts who are dying to get out and go see people, hug people, interact with people. We get our energy from other people. So for your people who are stuck at home, they're the people on the left. So maybe you need to be doing some virtual coffees, virtual happy hours, maybe doing a virtual game or giving them space for brainstorming out loud. Some of your people are perfectly fine working from home quietly. That's them. So they still need to be checked on. Just because somebody's an introvert doesn't mean they don't want any human interaction, but they will want to be checked on in a different way. So your meetings with them will be a little bit more focused. Give them some time to think before you talk about things. So be mindful of who your people are right now. It's pretty important. I saw some chats come in. Let me just check. Somebody said, I'm on the left. That's me. I'll give you a virtual hug, Tim. I get it. I am so extroverted and I get my energy from other human beings in a room. So even though I love seeing your faces on the camera or I love virtual meetings, it's not the same. It's not the same. We'll be able to get together at some point soon. But I do think this is going to change our cadence of meetings in the long term. I think we're going to see more virtual, more Zoom meetings for sure. So not only does extroversion affect, how often we want to connect and what that looks like, it also affects team meetings. So if you're doing meetings, make sure that, you give your high extroversion people brainstorming space, time to talk through things with you, even in an informal session. And make sure in a team meeting, you're really making sure you send out agendas in advance so that your lower extroversion people can think, be mindful, maybe use virtual whiteboards so that people who think and like to write out their thoughts can do that before everybody starts talking. So just be kind of mindful of satisfying everybody's needs. Okay, let's poll the audience and see where you all fall. So let me launch our final poll. I want to know, where do you fall on the extroversion scale? Are you low, a little bit more introverted? Are you middle of the road? Some of us are in the middle. Are you high? Give me all the people. Okay, we have a lot of people in the middle. I think many of us, depending on the time of day and what's going on, can relate to that. So yeah, a lot of you are in the middle. I'll share results if I can. So most of us on this call are in the middle. Some of you are low, some of you are high. But I want you to make sure that even people who are low in extroversion, they need love too. Check on them, check on everybody. Just do it in a different way. Okay. Right. Build rituals of communication. So if you don't already have a cadence of meetings, one-on-ones with your people, now's the time to really build that. Every leader should have a one-on-one meeting with their people on a scheduled ritual. Depending on how many people you have report to you will determine the frequency. You're one person, so you can't be in meetings all day, all the time. So these can be very simple. They can be 15 minutes. So be mindful of how often you need to meet with people, what's the purpose and the agenda. The more you can create a focused agenda, the more efficient these meetings can be. Make sure that you're using video cameras because we do need to see each other. We do need to have that nonverbal communication. While you're in the meeting, be present and focused. It is very easy to be distracted right now because we're doing virtual meetings. We also have our email app. We have a lot of things going on. When you do one-on-ones with your team or your individuals, be present, be focused on that meeting. Don't be looking at other things. Don't be straying because it lowers trust with your people and it makes for a less effective meeting. And keep these short and simple. So some people I heard are having, weekly 15-minute check-ins with their people. Some great agendas that I've heard of are people are talking about, hey, here are the top 3 things I'm working on. And here are 2 things that I want you to be focused on this week. Some people do a ask. What is one ask of me that you have? And what is one ask I have of you? So these can be very simple agendas. Just make sure that they're appropriate and short and simple. Okay. Number 8, give them feedback. Okay, now is not the time to go into manager autopilot and not give our people meaningful feedback. They probably need it more. I recently did a survey with our client and prospect base, and 65% of employees crave more feedback at work. So if you think you're giving enough feedback, chances are you're not. So really be good at this. This is a skill that I think a lot of leaders and managers shy away from, holding people accountable, giving them feedback. I love the book Fierce Conversations. I'll share this resource. There's another book called Crucial Conversations that is very similar. If you've never read Crucial Conversations or Fierce Conversations, you should. It's a really valuable skill. Whether you manage people or not, we're all leaders and we all have to be able to give feedback. This book gives you a simple script with some very short, easy steps to have a meaningful conversation that focuses on improving and elevating performance in 5 minutes or less. So highly recommend that you be practicing this with your team, that you be giving feedback and receiving feedback because it's very important right now. Okay. Okay, number 9, keep a pulse on their engagement. I am really paying attention with our clients on how this change and this shift is impacting how employees feel about their experience with work right now. I think that we're going to go in waves of productivity and engagement, but I want you to be pulsing your people. So several of the leaders of companies we work with, we have recommended that they issue a video message to their people. If you are a leader, record a message to your team and be meeting with your team on a regular basis. And then keep a pulse on how they're feeling emotionally, but also how they're experiencing their job, their company. I'm not suggesting you do a big long survey right now. Maybe just use SurveyMonkey and ask one question anonymously to poll and keep a pulse on your people at a time. Here are some things to be mindful of. I call these the forces of ruin inside of our organizations. These are the things that can lower a person's engagement with their job and their company. So you need to be paying attention to job fit. So think about it. A lot of people's jobs totally changed right now. So they might have been delighted doing their job 2 months ago, and now suddenly their job's totally changed. So we need to be paying attention and getting them through that gap because their job may have changed permanently or temporarily. So be mindful of, hey, what about your job change that is really a struggle for you right now, and how can we work through that? Be paying attention to yourself. Your mindset, your interactions with your team are really going to pull them through this time. So the leader, their peers, be spot checking with your team. How are you feeling about the team meetings? How can we make team meetings better? How are you feeling about your peers? Be managing conflict. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So be making sure that if there is conflict among your team in this time of high anxiety, that you're dealing with it and you're helping them through it. And then the organization, make sure that as organizations, we are sending out messaging, we are communicating with our people, and that our top leaders are demonstrating really powerful leadership right now. And my favorite tip from one of my favorite leaders and leadership coaches, Patrick Lencioni, says, be exceedingly human right now. And I love this, and I'm actually seeing this from leaders, people in general. I think that the one silver lining of all of this is that we have had a return of humanity and the community, and that people are being more human and understanding than they have been in the past, and I think that's a good thing. So let's really be mindful of being human with the humans who work with us. So remember, your team is not a place you go physically. It's a feeling you have in your head and your heart. And as leaders, it is our job to continue to build up our teams and have that team feeling. So what questions, I'm going to send out some resources at the end of this with links of everything I've mentioned, but I'll stop and ask for questions at this time. You can either unmute and let us hear your lovely voice, or you can type in the chat box. Okay. Thank you, Katie. And Mona, I will send out the links so that you can email everybody some of these resources at the end.
That is fantastic, Amy. And I know we're not ending quite yet, but just for those of you that are on, know to expect a follow-up email from Central Exchange later today. And we will include any of the documents or links that Amy has referred to. And then we also love to get your feedback about your experience today. So just be on the lookout for that later. Let's see. It's almost impossible to think that nobody has a question.
I'm going through. Somebody said thank you, tips. Wade said, what is the time on the clock behind you? You caught me, Wade. I need to change my battery. That's funny. That's very observant. Good job. I have a low attention to detail on my PI results, so you'll see that sometimes in things like that. That's hilarious. Oh, somebody said they don't manage a team, but they can use these tips to manage up. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you manage people or not. You lead and influence. You lead and influence your peers. You lead and influence your boss. Absolutely. I love it, Wade. That's funny. You know I'm going to go change that battery now. Any other questions? Well, I'll stay on. If you have to jump off, then I'll let you get back to your day. Remember, be exceedingly human, and thank you guys for being here. And I'll stay on just in case somebody's typing.
I bet there are a few people staying on wanting to ask. We want to thank, first of all, Amy for being here today. If you know of somebody that would like to participate, Amy has generously offered to do a repeat of this presentation Monday at 2:30, and it's on the Central Exchange calendar. You can find that at centralexchange.org and just click the program calendar. We have 1 or 2 programs a day that we are hosting, so we encourage you to do that. And again, be on the lookout for the questionnaire with the links that Amy shared and a couple of the questions from us. And we love hearing from people. So whether it's on the chat right now or you can send messages directly to hello@centralexchange.org. Love to hear your thoughts and ideas for any future presentations too. So let's see, Amy, you got lots and lots of thank yous here.
Yeah, I love all the thank yous and applause. I'm an extrovert, so yay, give me all the applause. Someone did ask a good question about what's the best way for asking for feedback in this time. I think that the Fierce Conversations script works both ways. And so, Christine, I can actually email you the script if it's helpful. And I have one that's kind of more for asking for feedback or managing up, because you're certainly going to change your tone if you're talking to your boss rather than a subordinate. So I think that it is perfectly acceptable to create a culture of giving and receiving feedback both up and down as we manage up and manage down. So Christine, I will send you that script because I think there's a really good way of asking your boss for feedback, but then also providing your boss feedback. New skill sets we've observed in teams at this time. I think that all of the people that we've been working with are really working on their leaders, on their power of influence. It is hard to influence people when they're far away and you don't see them on a daily basis and in a time of crisis. So we're really honing on those influencing skills. The other thing is leading virtual team meetings. They can be challenging. So how do we make sure that we are being mindful of supporting how our people communicate and collaborate? So using tools, virtual whiteboards, agendas. I am not the best. I'm kind of a brainstormer, but I'm really being mindful of detailed agendas before the night before a meeting so that we are really prepared to use our time. So that's a skill that I think is very important right now. And then the ability to be clear in your communication. Like I said, the ants, so clear delegation. So really a lot of our companies are making sure their leaders are really working on those clear delegation. How do we use tools in that as well to make sure that we are managing to projects? Okay. Okay, several people want the script. I'll add it, Mona, to the resources. No problem. Okay. Any other questions? Looks like. Oh, I love Rachel said that, you know, I've given my people a lot of grace, but not myself. Yeah, that's really important right now. We need to be understanding we're human beings as leaders, and we need to be giving ourselves grace, because it's a tough time to be a leader right now.
Yes, Rachel, thank you for mentioning that, because I think we all are guilty of that from time to time. So wouldn't it be great as we could be as kind to ourselves as we are to others sometimes?
Yeah.
Looking at the chat. So any other questions before we end today's meeting? Now is the time. Actually, Amy, if you would take a minute or two and talked about the predictive index. We know it's a benefit that all Central Exchange members receive. Thanks to our partnership with you, but just help them understand a little bit about the benefit of that.
Yeah, so I've used PI for years as a manager, and then now I help clients with it. But the Predictive Index is a short and sweet behavioral assessment. It takes less than 10 minutes to complete. And once you complete it, it gives you some really good insights into your natural behavioral tendencies. So how do I tend to communicate? What do I lean into when I'm influencing other people? How do I delegate? How do I listen? So it gives you a lot of insight into what I call your autopilot zone. So as human beings, when we are stressed out, when we are tired, or when we are in a hurry, we tend to operate from autopilot. And the PI really tells you when you're in autopilot and you're not consciously aware of your behavior, these are the things you tend to do. And so it's helpful as a leader for you to understand that, so you know, oh, when should I lean into that? What are my strengths? And when should I be mindful of that? Because it could also be your kryptonite, I call it. So, so just really giving you that increased self-awareness so that you can lead others and understand your self-awareness for impact. So if you haven't taken it, take it. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for reviewing that. And again, all Central Exchange members, they receive that benefit. If you have not taken that and you are interested in it, you can email me at mona@centralexchange.org. And then Amy and her partner, Haley, also host 3 to 4 of the, I don't know, evaluations, or what do we call that, Amy, that you guys do every year?
Yeah, we do an understanding your strengths session where we help you understand, once you get your PI results, what that translates into your strengths as a leader. Yeah.
Very helpful no matter what level you are in your career. So highly encourage everybody to take that. So let's see, we'll do one last call for questions. Questions, comments, pats on the back for Amy.
I got a lot of pats on the back.
I'm giving you a pat on the back right now. So thank you so much again, Amy. We greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to hosting you again this coming Monday.
Sounds good. I will send you the email with all of the little tips and resources so that we can get that out to everybody.
Excellent. Madison will make sure that that goes out today. So again, thank you on behalf of Central Exchange for everybody joining us today, and make the rest of it a great day. Thanks again.